these formative moments are more important than you realize, I think is it. So like whatever step you're on in your journey, and I'm still in an early, young, middle step. It's like I can do some things, but I can't do a lot of things. But whatever step you're on, I think the main point is just be on that step. Enjoy it. Don't rush to everywhere. Like you you have so little control over so much. Control what you can control. Take the next step in front of you. Sometimes it's a mic, sometimes it's the gym, sometimes it's writing a joke, sometimes it's just watching a comedy special, sometimes it's reading a book, sometimes it's going for a walk or petting your cat or doing whatever. But whatever that next step is, take it, and hopefully you can find some kind of joy and presence in it, because I think that's ultimately the biggest gift we can give anyone is our presence. If it's authentic and it's there to just be who we are with whoever is there with us.
Jokes in the gym, jokes in the gym, not jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym, jokes in the gym, with Rudy Tibersi.
Hello and what is up, my friends? This is Rudy Tibersi and this is Jokes in the Gym. You are listening to episode 51 of Jokes in the Gym. This is going to be a handful of weeks, a couple of episodes where I'm going to do kind of a compendium. Is that the right word? A compilation of answers from my guests. Now, the final question that I tend to ask people on the show is, what would you tell your younger self? What advice would you give your younger comedy self if you could go back and talk to that whippersnapper? And so I just think that that is something we can all ask ourselves, and I think that there's something we can learn from all our friends. And so just going back and looking at those answers, I think has been fruitful, and it's just a fun way to hear from a variety of people and summarize a bunch of cool things that they've learned and share that with you. It's kind of the holiday season. It's a holiday gift to you, and it's also a holiday gift to myself, because I do not have to produce another 5 interviews for the next few weeks, because that's what I'll be doing with these episodes, is putting some stuff together. And I think it's a really great way, if you maybe haven't listened to full episodes of the pod, to get tastes of the pod, to see what it's all about. It's about growth and connection and laughter. You know what? I'll get into some stuff, some of my learnings as we go along throughout these next 5 weeks, but I've come a long way this year. This is episode 51. I've put one out every single week this year, and maybe it's not the most popular podcast, but who cares? I'm having a good time. I'm learning a lot. I'm staying consistent. I really need something external, like a carrot, some kind of project to work on. This has been an amazing project to work on all year. I've gotten to work on it with so many good friends, so many good people. It's been really cool to be able to do that and to share that with you. So thank you for taking some time to hang out, to listen to what people have to say, coming at it with an open mind, yo. Having a little fun, doing a little learning, a little growing. Who knows what might happen when you listen to a podcast, right? Who knows? Might help you. Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something? And so that's part of why I'm putting these together, because they help me, and I learned from my friends that I talk to, and I want to make that accessible for everybody. So my first guest is a great guy. He was the first guest on the pod. He was stoked to do it from the start. He is a hilarious comic from Buffalo, just salt of the earth. Good people. Buffalo Brian Netzel. Buffalo Brian. Man, such a good guy. Met him at the Savage Henry Comedy Festival. He's traveling all over. He's written a book. He's done all kinds of stuff. He still resides in Buffalo, but he's going all over the world constantly. And you are going to hear from him what he wishes he would have kicked to the curb a little sooner. And I have found that it's maybe been a common thread among several comedians. So please enjoy Brian Netzel.
Or if you could say something to yourself or someone in a similar position when they were starting comedy, what do you have any like guiding pieces of advice that you think would have served you well over this last decade?
If I was to talk to my first year comedy person, I would tell them to quit drinking immediately because that was the thing that really set me on a different path. Was like sobriety was it.
Yeah.
I had a huge problem with it. Some other people might not, but if I was talking to myself from that time, then yeah, that would be it.
Do you think yourself would have listened to you at that time?
Absolutely not. He wouldn't have heard a bit of it. He'd be like, "What are you talking about? I'm doing great."
Jaeger on a Tuesday's dope.
Yeah, 6 gin and tonic sounds like a good start.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean,
dude.
Thinking about I kind of hate to think about all the money I've spent on booze over the years. I've made a big change myself, but at the same time, it was like, you know what? I had fun. I was traveling. I met people. I was doing this stuff. Having a shitty golden beer in Thailand is worth it. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, absolutely. And I think, like, to add on to what you're saying, like, I don't think I would have been able to, like, focus on having a healthy, balanced lifestyle had I not been such a piece of shit. You know what I mean? I think I would have just continued to be mediocre and just kept down that path. But I think, like, being to the extreme in the negative really helped me to try and focus on being in the extreme in the positive.
Yeah, it can give you some much needed perspective. And, I have to say, I think you have graduated firmly into mediocre plus.
That's all I can ask for. That's in the positive.
That's where I'm shooting. Mediocre plus.
Yeah, man. It's a good spot.
Right. Absolutely.
Right on. That was Brian Netzel. Love that guy. What an awesome guy. And the next comedian on the pod, episode 2, was Albert Escobedo. Albert is a great friend of mine that I met back when I started comedy on my journey, started stand-up at least, in Seoul, South Korea, where we were both teaching English, and we both put on a bunch of shows together with the help of so many others like Jeff Sinclair, Adam Palmeter, who you'll hear later in this episode, Aaron Weber, so many funny people, Brian Aylward, so many funny people that were a part of Stand Up Seoul. And Albert is a really smart, hardworking guy. He's got a huge heart. He's dedicated so much of his life to serving animals and others. Albert is the director of a humane society. He's a family man, and you hear how important that is to him. When he moved back to the States and lived in LA, he was a super accomplished roast battle comedian. And this part of the episode is a nice extension, and not just to focus on comedy, because so many of us aren't going to be able to only focus on comedy all the time, and that's okay. We gotta live our lives. We gotta go do stuff. And so Albert really has an awesome perspective that I think I can draw a lot from. And so we kind of talk about that and some of what our time in Korea helped us learn, as well as our relationship with comedy now and moving forward. So enjoy, and I hope you are able to take to heart some of the learnings of Albert Mora Escobedo.
So you're, as somebody who has so much experience, like in high stress situations, I'm sure people really appreciate having you there. I'm sure that those skills that you've gotten from performing have really lent themselves to working with animals. Does that track?
Absolutely. And I think it's with anything where you've been under high pressure and you care a lot. Some people are under high pressure for a job, but they don't have anything invested. Like, I'm a huge animal lover. Huge. Like, I think about it constantly. It affects everything I do in my life. It's why I'm here. And I believe other people I work with have the similar kind of relationship with their job. So that caring and that high level of stress is what I can relate to comedy, because we really love it. We really want to do a good job. We're not just there for S and G's. We're there for improvement. We're there to get our jokes out. We're there to express ourselves. We're there because we love it and we want to see the other comics too. It's not just all about us. And I think that's what it's like for me there. So there is that overwhelming gratitude I have for my team, because I can't do it without them. the overwhelming gratitude for anybody in the world that takes that step to get into animal welfare and animal medicine, because it's extremely difficult. It's very difficult, and it doesn't pay very well. So for the people that have used their life, skill, mind, hands, eyeballs to come help me help animals means everything to me, because you're not just helping one. What I see in veterinary medicine, as soon as you teach somebody, you're not just helping one animal, you're helping like millions, because that one person is going to help a bunch and then teach people, and they're going to help a bunch. So every person I teach a skill, or every time I get somebody from a level 1 to a level 2, I know that I'm impacting like the animal world, and that makes me feel really good. And kind of similarly, when I was doing comedy at a high level, I felt like we were impacting like this huge wave, this butterfly effect of how it's affecting things. And, that's always been my end goal. You're talking about plans, and what I want for my future is to just have as much positive impact on the world as possible. And I'm not the type of person that thinks like, oh, I just want to impact my family unit and the people that I have the same last name. Like, no, I think big. I dream big. I want to impact like millions, billions. I want to help 1 billion animals in my life, even if it's indirectly. And I feel like that's what allows me to be not comfortable in uncomfortable situations, but being comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think that's also a sports thing. Like when I was doing sports as a kid, you're always, stepping up to the mat and your heart is pounding. You never know. You don't know what's about to happen. You're like a one-on-one gladiator. And the same thing in comedy. You're just you against the audience. It's a one-on-one sport. And there's a lot of eyes on you. And when you're working directly with an animal, it's like a one-on-one thing. No one can help you. You're on your own. And that's something that I thrive on. And then I also thrive on making mistakes publicly. I think I do that better than a lot of others. I can make a mistake, people can see it, and I'm just like, I hope it doesn't happen again. I can learn from my mistakes. And
you fuck up so well, Albert.
I'm a professional fuck up.
That's all. That should maybe be the name of comedian. Professional fuck up.
I like it. It's not terrible, and it translates. Well, it translates to everything. Go ahead.
100%. I don't think your jokes get better unless they fail some of the time. Like, you have to figure out how to make them work. And I think, going back to what you were saying about impacting others, is something I've always noticed about you, is you have that service mindset. You have that desire to serve others. And I don't think everybody has that in the comedy world. So many people do get in it purely for egotistical reasons. And that's what kind of comedic perspective doesn't resonate with me, is somebody who is in there and you can see just ego. I want to have fun. I'm in there to have some laughs with you. I'm in there to create a good experience. And comedy is like types of medicine in that it's preventative medicine. The gym and comedy are preventative medicine. If you think about
awesome. Yeah.
You get in that room, you're laughing with 50 strangers at the same pain. That is medicine. That is magic. That is something in the air that will never happen again. And if you allow that to be greater than yourself, it's so much more rewarding. It's the closest thing to church you get, right? And absolutely. Up there, we get to be there helping people. Well, the closest thing to church is actually going to a professional sporting event with 20,000 screaming fans. You know what I mean? Like when I went to the Portland Trail Blazers playoff game, I couldn't, oh my God, it's like,
that's a religious experience.
You're floating in that arena with everybody there. It's amazing. And comedy gives that same experience. I'm sure I say this all the time. I've had a friend who came to a show in Korea at the Renaissance Hotel where we put on shows with all these comedians. And he was like, I've been all over the world, but I've never had a night quite like this. And it's just such a cool thing to think about. Somebody who's done so many things. And yet a comedy night, just sitting in a room laughing at jokes, can be some of the biggest, most impactful moments that you have. It can make your day, week, month, year if you go to an amazing show. You know what I mean? Yeah. Oh my gosh.
What we have seen and been able to do is pretty magical, like miracles that we in our life have seen. Just you and I putting on these shows with our friends in Korea, and people showing up and us getting big laughs and us like really feeling like comics, but we were in a foreign country, like that's unbelievable. And that experience really, like I can keep that memory of Stand Up Soul and probably be satisfied for the rest of my life with everything I've done comedy wise. That was something to me that I needed at that time that I don't really need anymore. You know, I don't need
Mhm.
that validation anymore like I needed then, to just know that I am a person that can impact in the way that I want to impact, and that I'm not
Mhm.
reliant on where I came from or my family or what other people can do for me or how I grew up, or, you know, what other
Yeah.
resources that I had available to me. Because, you know, when you are around where you grew up, and to take that show on the road like we did, and to get those responses like we did, and for me to see you having fun on stage and telling jokes that are just completely silly, completely like irrelevant stuff, but to get
Totally
the
irrelevant.
audience so into it and so happy. And I would see the audiences just being lost in your comedy, our comedy, because we were providing something for them that they couldn't get anywhere else. And it was like just we were so lucky. We were so
Yeah.
lucky to be able to do that. And the timing was right. And the group of us
Totally.
was right. And the motivations were right. And, you know, those are
Yeah.
something like that just isn't going to happen to me again. It's just not.
Yeah.
And it probably won't happen to anybody ever again. Stand Up Soul's not new anymore.
Yeah, it was extended summer camp for us in many ways. We got to do all the fun things together and the hard things together. We had to put a lot of work into you know, the camp counselors have to work hard to make that a fun experience for everybody. And so it was so special that we did get to do that. And, you know, I told Matt Schmidt, another good friend of ours, someone that just recently moved back to the States from a life abroad, and he's in my neck of the woods, and we're good friends, and I'm training with him some of the time, and we're talking, and he's coming to Mike's now and then and stuff like that. He's like, oh, me, you, and Albert got to get together sometime as well. So it's like these formative moments are more important than you realize, I think is it. So like whatever step you're on in your journey, and I'm still in an early, young, middle step, it's like I can do some things, but I can't do a lot of things. But whatever step you're on, I think the main point is just be on that step. Enjoy it. Don't rush to everywhere. Like you have so little control over so much. Control what you can control. Take the next step in front of you. Sometimes it's a mic, sometimes it's the gym, sometimes it's writing a joke, sometimes it's just watching a comedy special, sometimes it's reading a book, sometimes it's going for a walk or petting your cat or doing whatever. But whatever that next step is, take it, and hopefully you can find some kind of joy and presence in it. Because I think that's ultimately the biggest gift we can give anyone is our presence. If it's authentic and it's there to just be who we are with whoever is there with us.
100%. 100%. I think the whole takeaway is just like you're saying, being present and enjoying the process. And it's so cliche. You hear it all the time. Enjoy the process. It's not about the journey. It's about the next step. And it's just so true for everything, because you're going to gloss over the part that you were supposed to be enjoying because you're looking for the next thing.
Yeah.
And it's for everything. And I think just like whatever you're going to do next, and especially if it's in health or in comedy, you have to be all in. You have to be all in, and that's something that I think that is inescapable. If you're 1 foot in the door and 1 foot out the door, it's going to be impossible to get to where you want to be. So you just have to make tough decisions about what's really important to you and try to stick to it. Try to stick to it. Stick to your plan. Don't make excuses. You know, and 1 foot in front of the other is a real thing. One step at a time, like they say. It's a real thing. And for all those parts of my life that I didn't realize how great they were until later, that's the only thing you can really regret, that you weren't enjoying the moment. But I think, you know, we've been pretty good at it. We're not like lost. You know, I never got too in the weeds of forgetting why I wanted to do comedy in the first place. But it was always for me to just express myself honestly. Like you said, try to be honest in public, try to be honest to strangers. And that's a skill. That's a skill that gets me everything. It's 100% why I was able to get married and stay married, because I'm not chasing this ego. I am who I am. I like who I am. I'm always going to be this way. And comedy put me in that place. And I think I was able to, you know, do well in comedy because I did come from a competitive sports kind of background where I knew working harder gets you further than the people.
You have to have an edge.
You have to have an edge. You have to put in the time. You have to put in the time and be 100% sure this is what you want. And other than that, it's always going to be like kind of jogging in place. And right now, this is something that is probably not for everybody, but focusing on my marriage is my 100% priority right now. Comedy helps me be a better husband. Exercise helps me be a better husband. Having some career goals and general ambition helps me be a better husband and father. And I think all that just makes me a better person and role model. And it all comes together. You can't not take care of yourself and think you can take care of others. It doesn't work that way.
Love that sentiment from Albert. You can't not take care of yourself and expect to take care of others. Awesome words. Great to talk with Albert. Great to talk with my next guest as well. Episode 3 was Leigh Anne Jasheway. She is a comedian, a speaker, a writer. She's been doing this for decades. She's doing the stuff that I like to do. She worked in health and fitness and wellness for many years, and she was also doing it as like a funny freaking person the whole time. And she really kind of blew up when she was teaching classes back in the day and being funny, and people really enjoyed that. And so I have a lot to learn from Leigh Anne, and so I was really stoked that we got to have a conversation. And in this conversation, this part of the conversation, you get to hear some of her learnings, and one of those learnings that I'm taking to heart and that I've even scribbled down in my own notebooks over the years. And so it's fun to hear what she thinks is important, and she gives some really solid, applicable advice to people who have a hard time letting loose or having fun, and gives some specific advice on how to allow yourself to do that, how to make sure that enjoying yourself and having fun is something that you do. Now, here's Leigh Anne Jasheway.
What advice would you give your younger self? Like, as you're starting comedy or as you're starting this, like, what would you say? Hey, 30-year-old Leigh Anne, what, here's the advice I want you to keep in mind moving forward. What would that be?
I think it would be quit trying to be good. Just try to make yourself laugh, because I really have taken to heart that good or best depends on the audience. And in my classes, I used to say that each of your sets is about 50% what you've written and 50% how you perform it. But the how you perform it depends 50% on the audience receptivity. Because if they're sitting there glaring at you angrily, or they're all trying to hook up with one another, not paying any attention, that is going to drive how well you perform it. And so I wish I had approached it with more of a, let's just have fun that I do now. Now, no matter how well a set goes, it's like, that was fun. And that's really what I care about. That and at least having people laugh at one smart joke. If I get you to laugh at a math joke, I'll be happy.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
But yeah, I think when we're approaching anything new, we have this mindset of excelling and this definition of what success is. And it's very, very narrow. It's just like with any art. I started painting during COVID, and I've never had painting skills, and I've been told over and over that I'm not good at it. And I've had so much fun doing it anyway. But it took shifting a mindset into, it doesn't matter what the end product is. If I enjoy doing it and I have a great idea and I manage to put that idea down and it pleases me. And it's the same for comedy. If I wanted to write a set about how we need to eat the billionaires and I delivered it and I got some laughs, I'm good with it, because that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so cool. So do you think that focusing just on fun can work in opposition to meeting goals?
I think it depends on the way your brain is wired. Because there are people who cannot self-motivate without having goals and meeting them every day. Yep. I am not one of those people. I have a general overarching goal, and that is have fun, enjoy life, and make other people's lives better, and also save all the animals in every way humanly possible, and the planet. And democracy,
just a few things.
A few things on the list. So I think it's really important to understand who you are, no matter what you're doing. And so if you're the kind of person who needs a to-do list and checking things off, then what you need to do is make sure that having fun is on your to-do list and it is one of your goals. If you're the kind of person who, no matter what, is going to achieve stuff, because it's part of me. I've been retired now for a year and a half, and I am no less busy. There is stuff every day that needs attention, most of which has come right out of here. Like I have this list here. Write a play about how a buy nothing group solves crimes. I'm going to write this play, right? I just have a list of craziness here.
Oh yeah, got to do that. Forgot. I didn't do that on Tuesday.
So if you understand who you are, then you can understand how best to operate to make sure that you have fun. Either you put it on your list because you need lists to do things, or you just have fun and do the things too, because that's just how you're wired.
All right. That was so great. Leigh Anne Jasheway is awesome. Check out her website, theaccidentalcomic.com. My next comic, Turner Sparks, is friggin' hilarious. He's another one of those friends of mine that I met when I was starting stand-up in Asia. He was in China, I was in Korea. It was cool. And you meet through the scenes like you do. It's like, I would often tell people living in Asia doing comedy was like living in the Midwest doing comedy. Because you kind of like know people from other scenes and you'll go do shows there and you'll meet up with them and you'll have a good time and then you won't see them for 2 years. Or whatever, or maybe 6 months, or you'll go there, or they'll come to your spot, and that kind of stuff. It was always just so fun. Seoul is like Milwaukee, is basically what I'm trying to say. And Turner and I started around the same time, and he's made a real go of it. He moved straight to New York City after he left China, and he's been doing well. He's got albums. He's got podcasts. He's hilarious. He's a friend. And I'm excited that he was on the podcast. And I really like his pieces of advice. He gives 2 or 3 super solid gems here as far as a comedian's role on a comedy lineup. Like when you're a part of a show, what's your role? And then also the comedian's relationship with the audience is something he shares what he learned about 10 years into his comedy. And I think if you can take this to heart and take that feeling on stage, it'll do nothing but help you while you're performing. So enjoy Turner Sparks.
What advice do you give to young comedians if you're chatting today?
Okay. Well, here's one that I would have thought of earlier is I would have liked to have, I would give myself at an earlier age, is that when you're hosting, I host a lot now, that the job in general, when you're doing 6 comics on a bill, leave the crowd in a better place than you found them. I think I heard Regan say that. And I used to go on stage, but the first joke didn't work and I would panic. And then the rest of the set wouldn't work because I was in my head about the first joke not working. And especially when you're doing showcases or when you're headlining, whatever, you can't control what happened in the room before you got on stage. So maybe the person before you went on stage pissed off the whole audience. So your first joke just isn't going to work because they're in a bad spot. They're not really happy. So the goal is to make them be having fun by the end of your 10 minutes or the end of your 7 minutes. And if you did that, you killed. They might not know you killed, but when you go to the back of the room, all the comics will, because they recognize how hard it was, whatever you just did. Right.
Totally.
And on the other side, if you go into a hot room, you have to recognize that, yes, I just killed for 7 minutes or 10 minutes, but also that was a great room. Like give a little credit, and so not be like, I'm done. I quit. I'm now a professional, and it's over. Like the money's coming in now. And so, and be aware that maybe they started out hot and then you left them a little weaker at the end. Well, that's not the opposite's a better set than that, even if you didn't do well for as long. So, but I think the big one was just to not panic the first few minutes on stage. And especially if you're hosting. I host a lot in New York now, and you're not supposed to be killing right off the top. There's some get to know you phase to it, right? So really you're just supposed to, by the end of your 10 or by the end of your 15, set it up so the next guy or woman can walk on stage and just start crushing.
Yeah.
And I think that was advice I heard later on from like a Regan on a podcast. I'm like, man, I wish I knew that going in.
It's one of those things that's so good to keep in mind. It is an ecosystem, a comedy show, and it's like, oh yeah, I have a role to play. It's so.
And
great.
I thought of one more, and this is maybe the most important that I really didn't realize till maybe like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
The crowd came to the show to have a good time. Mm-hmm. They want you to do well.
Yeah.
I feel like I went a decade before I processed that correctly. I wish that would have sunk in early on. They're there because they paid money. They want everything. They want to laugh. They're giving you the benefit of the doubt. They are not your adversaries. For a while, I was like, it's me against this crowd, which is not at all. We're all on the same team.
Yeah.
And the minute that's really good thing. I wish I knew that earlier.
That perspective shift influences so much of just how you are on stage. And an audience can smell fear, they can smell a bullshitter, they can smell blood in the water. So if you're giving them your authentic self of like, oh, we're here to have fun together, they'll pick up on that. Even if you don't, and that's how I get by on sometimes material that's not fully polished or ready to go at every show. It's like, I'm here because I want us to have fun, and I'm going to do my best. It might not always crush, but it's going to be a good time.
Well, and going back to Shane Gillis, I think that's how he and a lot of comedians can get away with challenging raw, what you might consider wrong material, like material that presents a point of view that no one agrees with, but you can just tell he's there for a fun time. So you're like, wow, I don't agree with that statement, but I know he's joking. I can tell he's joking. I can tell this is all, we're in a place of safety because the point is fun, right?
Yeah. The point is fun.
You hear that, everybody? The point is fun. Let's have some fun. And I think that goes perfectly with my next guest, Laura Sanders, a very funny comedian that I met at the High Plains Comedy Festival in Denver when we were both on Late Late Breakfast, one of the most fun shows I've ever been a part of. She played a zombie. I chose her to be a zombie, and she had to chase me as I performed a set, and then she would also zombify other people in the audience who would then chase me as well. And once I got zombified myself, I finished my set in zombie mode, and it was one of the most fun experiences I ever had at a comedy show, and Laura was a big part of it. And she and I have stayed in touch since then, and I was so delighted to have her on the podcast. She, as we talked about with Turner, is big on fun and enjoying what you are doing. She's done a lot. She's been through a lot. She's now in New Orleans, and doing stuff there. So you can check her out if you're ever in that city. Her advice that she has taken years to learn herself, and I think it's one of these important pieces of advice that we could all take to heart when we're working on any field. So enjoy some learnings from Laura Sanders.
If you could give any advice to your early comedy or human self, what would you tell yourself? Like, what do you wish you could instill in young Laura's mind?
Ooh, I feel like beyond the keep being funny and keep being nice, I feel like that's a great mantra. That I wish I could have like let myself know earlier that like the illusion of the cool kids is just an illusion. Like, I feel like when there was a lot of like, who are the gatekeepers? Who are the people? And that's both with comedy and fitness, that there's such like an intimidation, or there's such a like, comparing yourself to who you consider to be the ideal person of whatever thing you're trying to do. And therefore thinking that you're not legitimate in doing it because you are not to the level that you're trying to like compare yourself to. So I just feel like earlier, like I literally have written on a mirror by my sink, like, you are one of the cool kids, because it's that feeling of like, it's all fake. It's like, there's no like actual standard. This sounds very like woo woo, but like capitalism is trying to sell us that standard. And then there's like some things that I just feel like I spent a lot of my 20s doing a lot of like, I need to lose this much weight by X time, or I need to achieve this comedy goals by X time to like prove my legitimacy in this thing. And that it's like, oh God, just like you spent so much time that you could have spent just like being gentle to yourself and pumping yourself up, trying to change yourself to fit a mold that wasn't actually you. And I think I just wish I would have like known that earlier. It's taken like a lot of, and I still do that stuff. I'm not like, and now I'm completely, perfect and mentally fine. But I feel like, yes, I'm completely, I'm so glad you called me now. I'm completely self-actualized. What good timing.
Great timing.
I know. But I feel like it would be nice when I was younger in that like prove myself mode to be like, oh no, just find joyfulness in the people that, because the people that will end up mattering to you are not the people that you're like, oh, they're like a big, tough, cool person. It's usually like the fellow goofballs. And then they are like the real true treasures in the end anyway. So I feel like that's something that would have been helpful for me to know when I was like obsessing over the opinions of people that I truly like don't remember their faces or names now. But I'm sure at one point it like kept me up at night that they thought that I was very cool.
Yeah. Totally. Comparison is the thief of joy, as they say. So I love that. That's an important thing to keep in mind. Like, we don't need to work as hard to be ourselves, and yet we do. It's hard. It's hard to not work, but also, there's a fine line between that level of authenticity and putting your nose to the grindstone and accomplishing things that you want to get done. So there's that balance we're looking for, huh?
Yeah, always. Maybe next time we talk, I'll have achieved it.
Laura is such a delight. And so is my next guest, Andy Andrist. I find that Andy's advice is really good for working comedians. Anybody who's out there doing feature sets, on the road, working with other comics, Andy gives some really good tips as to how to kind of get out of your own way, some things he would do differently, and I think it's really worth taking to heart. So enjoy hearing from Andy Andrist, underground legend.
If you could tell your younger comedy self anything, like something you wish you knew when you were starting the game, what would it be?
To not worry. Well, I mean, early would be to not worry about the time as much. But that's something I told features when I was headlining, because I knew that was always a big hurdle for me to think about. I got to do 30 and the stretch from 23 to, and if you don't think about it, and they would generally do about 27, 28 to 30, whatever, but I would just say to me in particular is lay off the fucking drinking as much, because I didn't drink water. I mean, all the mistakes you make with drinking, but it was part of my profession, a part of the thing to separate. So my reputation has always been that I'm, a rowdy drunk, or, what you got to that point, and it's not like people want to bring you in to go, oh, let's take a chance on this guy who may get too fucking drunk and say some really, shit that we don't, I wouldn't say horrible shit, but just shit that maybe a small town doesn't want to hear, or whatever it would be, But, I mean, that's just like kind of common with comedy. It's like it revolves. It's in a bar and it revolves around that. A lot of times you get drink tickets or whatever, but it's
payment.
It's almost like high school and its unhealthy attitude towards drinking.
For sure. For sure it is.
It's not a good peer group for somebody like me who was already, somebody who leaned into the alcohol for medication, I guess.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's a way to medicate ourselves.
So over the years, I would pull it off, or I would have more, of a set in my head. Then I got to where I would just kind of wing it, and then bad habits mixed into that sometimes take, you're not even sure what you're doing, and you've had a couple of cocktails or whatever, or 3 or 4 sometimes, and then it becomes a shit show.
Right. I think we get too oh, I can do this on 3 beers, easy. Oh yeah, it's just been a few drinks, it's not a big deal. And then you look back on those sets or whatever, and you're like,
Right, and it
I
just
could have done a
becomes
lot
kind
better.
of a lazy or a shitty work ethic
Yeah.
around it, you know.
Yeah.
I would rather be a successful comedian than an underground legend, but
Yeah.
life deals you cards.
Don't worry about the time of when you
Yeah,
become a
but that's the
successful.
thing that I felt like at least visiting up to the inevitable of thinking about death and stuff is like, what am I going to do about it at this point? And it was kind of a weird comfort zone is to go, you know, what do you know? It's like I can dig in, you know, if I'm going to die anyway. It's like that's my late, you know, it's already set in stone. So, you know, it's like Doug's thing. It's like life is like animal porn. It's if it's not for you. I don't even know how that ties in, actually.
Well, it is. If it's not for
Yeah.
you, leave it alone.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, let's leave it on animal
All right,
porn.
yeah,
I think that's
yeah,
a great ender. Yeah.
Yeah, misquote.
Misquote one of the
Misquote our way
greats.
out of this. So good to hang out, sir. Yeah,
That was local legend Andy Andrist. Very cool to get to know Andy and so many other people through comedy. Like my next guest, who I met again in Korea. So many of my conversations have been with awesome friends from Korea. I'm just so in awe of my friends who continue to travel and have this international lifestyle. I've been lucky enough to do that myself at some points in the past. Not quite doing it right now. I did get my passport recently. Booyah. Big checklist checked off. Check. I've been needing to do that for a while, so it felt good to get that done. I say that because our next comic is gallivanting all over the place. He's still highly active in circles in Vietnam as well as other places. He actually said some things in our conversation that really made me think. So I'm always happy to get to chat with Adam Palmeter, and I would recommend the episode for sure. And in this piece of advice, he talks about a time he bombed and how hard he took it and what he kind of learned from it. So enjoy hearing about Adam's departure from the States and into Vietnam.
All right, Adam. Last question before we finish up today. What is the advice you would give your beginning comedy self?
Tread lightly, maybe. Well, and I mean that in a way where I think when you first start comedy, being on stage is so intense, you know, like the feeling of it, and just like you really, when anything is that intense, I think, and it's a creative process, you're naturally going to attach yourself and your self-worth to that very easily. You know, I mean, there are times like when, you know, stand-up solo was always a lot of fun. I did really well at those shows. Like my first 6 months out of the gate, like I don't think I bombed, you know, like I always did like at least like okay or better. And I think that was like the audience, you know, like a lot of the jokes for like that audience. But I remember the first time I died on stage, and it was just like, I need a month of like, you know, like I just to try to come back from something like that. So I would say like, because I'm sure you remember how intense that was, you know, it's like getting up for your first time. It's not just, I mean, it's the performance, it's your material, and you're just you're not familiar with those feelings on stage in real time. So I guess I would say to myself, like, look, like have fun, you know, which I did, but sometimes coming home with a show is tough, because especially if it's not good, it just follows you. It did for me anyways. Like, you know, if I had a bad show, it was like my statement to the world, you know.
Right.
Actually, the biggest bomb I ever had, and actually this is right before I moved to Vietnam. This guy, Noah Gardenswartz, great comedian, used to run a show at the Creek in the Cave called High Five. And it was 5 comedians, and the whole thing was you had to smoke a blunt before you just walked on stage. And then you do your set. Like the audience is high, you know, and it was kind of a comedy show for comedians. And the audience, maybe 25 people, all very well-respected comics, you know, the owner of the club's there. And I was like, all right, I just gotten out of a relationship. I just realized I was moving to Vietnam. and I hadn't totally processed it yet. And he introduced me as saying, like, all right, your next comedian, well, his girlfriend just dumped him and he's losing his shit. So he's moving to Asia. Anyone else bring up? He brought me up. And I was like, and I thought, I mean, he did it because it's like maybe some good fodder to start with. And
Right.
I went up there and I tried to process it, and I was just so stoned, and it just went downhill very fast. Within a couple minutes, I was like, you know what, you guys don't deserve this. I'm gonna give my time to the room. Like I surrendered. That's how I left New York, and it was just like,
no.
I know. I mean, I had like my own like goodbye show for my show, and it was fine. But it was like the week afterwards, and that followed me for a long time because it wasn't just an audience; it was peers that I respected. Yeah. And then I wore that. I took it to Vietnam with me, and I was just like, all right. But then it's like the realization of like, you don't have to carry it with you, you know,
right.
No one else in that room is going to remember it unless I bring it up.
Right.
So I guess if there's any advice for any creative, comedy, you know, especially any creativity, just tread lightly, be kind to yourself, and
don't be so precious with everything.
I know, and no one fucking cares about you. That's the big bottom line here.
That is ultimately a big lesson to learn for all of us, especially as creatives, is people do not care nearly as much as you think. Who gives a shit? Just do your stuff. You can't hold on to it for too long. Yes, you want to take pride in what you're doing. Yes, you want to get cuddles from your kitties, but it's not the end of the world if you have a bomb. It doesn't mean that much almost every single time. Other than what you make it mean. So make it mean something good for you. I think that's kind of the point, right? Make it be fun. Make it be something that you can enjoy. And if you do, then more likely than not, other people are going to enjoy it too.
Totally. I always tell people, like, don't forget, you got inspired to do this. You know, that didn't just come from nowhere. You got inspired to do it. And that means it's part of you. So
absolutely.
Be kind.
Yeah. Be kind. I think that's a beautiful message to kind of finish on.
Oh my goodness, Adam is awesome, and so is my next guest, Kellen Terrett. Kellen, oh my gosh, one of my big good friends, one of my first comedy influences here in Eugene, especially. We met at an improv jam, and we were just thick as thieves immediately. Kellen's been such a good friend. Now he's in Chicago. He's done so much improv and sketch and all kinds of stuff in Chicago, and every time we get together, whether it's in person, IRL, or remote, we just pick up right where we left off. And he's in Chicago, he's a dad, he's a family man, and he's doing some entertainment, some comedy on the side as well. And I just really appreciate hearing from him. This is a bit longer of one of the clips today, and I think that there's so much juicy goodness wrapped up in his words. So I'm happy to share some more of my conversation with Kellen Terrett.
I was going to say, we've had enough nights of drinking at McMiniman's where you've 100% met my ego.
Yeah.
I think anytime you've heard me say, actually, that is my ego taking over, and
yeah. That's great. Okay, before we get into a final question or two, where do you draw the line between ego and confidence? How do you differentiate those two lines for you, or do you think about it? Is it a thing you've intentionally tried to adjust, or what?
Yeah, no, it's so interesting you say that. It's something I'm working on right now. Like, I often have the issue, again, talking about obsession, right, where I feel like I need to be active. I need to be doing.
Yeah.
Same. And that, to me, there is nothing wrong with the doing and in being active, but it is what the root of that is, or the destination. The way I myself, and again, this is not advice, this is just my opinion, I notice that my ego always has a destination in mind versus my confidence is just about the experience.
Oh.
So when I notice, it's like that Tim Robbins, meme where it's like, God, I gotta make money on this. That's my ego. When I notice my ego is the marketing person, like, okay, we're going to do this, and then this is going to happen, and then this will happen, and then we'll be here, and then this will be our destination, and everyone will love me and everything else. I'm like, oh, right. That ego is really worried about feeling abandoned, so we got to find the way that everyone will love us. Versus confidence is like, I like this. I think this will be good for me.
Yeah.
And I think there is something to be said about having harmony between those two, right?
Mhm.
I think our ego is here to help us navigate the world. The ego
Mhm.
exists for a reason, right? It's
Mhm.
the same reason that that any of this exists. There is a purpose for it.
Mhm.
What I try to do for myself is to understand when I go to the ego with a job versus letting the ego drive the ship.
Mhm.
Right. So if my ego is, I want to write a sketch or I want to be a part of a show because I want to be the best and I want to be better than others, that's when I know maybe this is in fact not the best idea for me,
Mhm.
or maybe my intent is not as grounded in a humble reality.
Mhm.
But if it's like you say, hey, do you want to come and do this podcast? I'm not like, oh, this will be great because I'm going to sound so smart and everyone's going to love me. I'm like, oh, man, I just want to feel excited connecting with Rudy and talking with Rudy. And if I can espouse something that somebody out there, you listener, I'm talking to you right now.
Hi.
Mike.
You hear that, Mike?
You hear that, Mike?
This is for you.
We're talking to you, Mike. Mike, you can do it.
You got this.
You got this, Mike. You got this. I believe in you, Mike.
Mike's got it.
You heard this. I love you, Mike. We all love you, Mike. And we're rooting for you, and we're voting for you.
Mike.
But there is something like if that comes from a place of like, I am doing this because I'm having a good time. I'm doing this because I want to connect. I'm doing this because I have experience that I think is worthy of other people hearing about. The same way that I might want to make a playlist for somebody, or the same way I'm like, oh, I wrote the sketch because I think this is funny, and boy, if somebody else laughs at it, that's enough.
Yeah, totally. 100%. I love that.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So taking that one step further, if you could give your beginning comedian rebel badass self, sticking it to the man, a single piece of advice or a series of pieces of advice, what would you tell yourself starting out?
Oh, it's so tough, man. It's so tough to really, because in some ways, like the advice, the first place I go to is like, hey, by the way, like, do not get a theater degree. Do not get a philosophy degree. Go get another degree and do something else. It's all of these pieces of advice to prevent the pain that I went through. But when I really think about it, the pain, the suffering that I went through, that all actors and artists, that all human beings go through, is part of it, right? That's the maturing. That is how we season ourselves. And I have the pleasure of being able to look back on that experience and say, yeah, it all had a purpose. Not that it was destined to happen, but that I took something from it and I made something from nothing, right? I took the suffering and I turned it into something that was ultimately good.
Yeah.
So I think the advice that I would give to myself would be to say, believe in yourself, trust yourself, and most importantly, just try to love yourself more. It's going to be hard. It's going to be scary. You're going to be fine. Let's try to enjoy ourselves just a little bit more. And maybe let's not, these 4 a.m. bars in Chicago, we don't have to close them out as often as we want to.
Yeah. So what would you tell somebody just moving to Chicago who's getting into comedy? What is something that you think would be a useful piece of advice for someone on that train?
I think the best piece of advice that I could give to someone in Chicago is understand that this is, like I said before, it's a school, right? You are not going to quote unquote make it. What you are going to do is you are going to learn from others. And the best way you can do that is see shows. Chicago is a great city because there are like the big schools of shows, like your Second City, your Annoyances, your IOs. And those are great places to go and to take classes and to learn from people. It's great. But Chicago is also a place of a lot of these like storefront comedy places, right? The amount of
what are those?
Like a storefront place is like, oh, it would normally be a nail salon, but it closed out and somebody rented it for a month and they're putting on shows there. Like the shows that I've done in people's basements, in attics, in like back rooms and bars, because somebody had an idea for a show. They knew they couldn't take it to a major theater and put it on there. So they got scrappy. They found a cool place to put it in, and then that becomes part of the ambiance. It becomes another character in the show. I think the thing that is the most enjoyable about Chicago is the fact that in a part of the country which is very traditional, very conservative, you get to do extremely untraditional things. And when I see people in Chicago not taking risks, I think they didn't read the syllabus. The place is here to take risks, and you can take as many risks as you want. I'm 40 years old, and I still get to take risks. I still get to do crazy things. I still get to perform. I still get to write. One show that I love so much that I still do is a show called Redacted, where every single month we do a stage reading of a movie, and we do it at a theater in town, like a movie theater in town. And, you know, we sell the place out. People come and they see us. And it's so fun to be a performer in that, to be like, oh, great. We did, you know, You Got Mail. I'm like, why am I reading You Got Mail? This is so fun. How great, how wonderful. And then you get to write things and you can say, great, I love this movie, or I think this movie is absolutely ridiculous. Now I'm going to write, we take the script, and then you get to be the director and kind of be like Mystery Science Theater and like throw in jokes and make commentary. And it's like, right. Yeah, that show could exist in another city. Absolutely. You could see that in Eugene or Portland, but it's so fun to do it in Chicago because there's an audience who is interested in seeing something unconventional and fun and recognizable.
That's awesome. I love that. I love talking to you. I love you.
I love you.
I love
talking to you.
The way I feel when we talk and when we hang out. It's always so invigorating, and it's always such a bright spot in my day, week, month. You know, it's such a great thing. And so I'm so glad that you are excited to be on the pod and that we just got to chat for a while. I think that there's so much that I have learned from you, and that I hope other people learn from you too. I know they do. You're a dad and you're a family man, and I love that, and I think it's so cool.
So much goodness from my friend Kellen Terrett. Such a delight to chat with him. Glad that we got to share that convo with y'all. And my next guest was also such a delight. He's hilarious. He's one of the biggest comedians in the Pacific Northwest, literally and figuratively. This guy's hilarious. He's a beast on the road. He's working his tail off. He's a family man. He's been through a lot. He talks about it on stage as well. He was addicted to meth. He was incarcerated. He was in all kinds of stuff over the years, and now he's just blowing up. Sam Miller is a fantastic comedian based out of Washington State, and he's probably coming to a town near you because that's how hard he works. And he always is so generous with his attention and his time and his words, and he cracks some jokes when I ask him the question, and then he really digs into some great answers as well, and what he would have changed and why he might have done that over the years. So please enjoy this part of the conversation with Sam freaking Miller.
If you could give yourself, early Sam, any advice, what would you tell yourself?
I would say do these jokes in this order. And
you're creating a time loop, Sam.
I say do these jokes in this order. And you know what I'd do? I would watch I'd start watching stand-up right now. And then I'd go back in time and just give myself half of Chappelle's, I'll give him all the not transphobic Chappelle jokes and tell them to myself. I'll be like, do this joke and this joke. And then, that's what I do. And I'd also tell myself all the winning lottery numbers. And I'd be like, don't do comedy. Invest in Bitcoin right before the pandemic, and then get out.
This is just Back to the Future, Sam.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I'll answer it seriously. And it sucks because I wouldn't, it doesn't matter what I tell early on Sam, because early on Sam isn't going to listen even to me.
No.
But you know, I would say exactly what Nate Jackson told me, and that's nobody's ever going to come for you. You got to do it yourself until they want you. I would honestly, I'm kind of glad that I didn't do a lot of internet stuff until later, because like a lot of people just like, they're like, oh, we got to put up reels, and like a lot of the reels that I see people putting up, it's like they don't go anywhere because it's not very funny, because they're not very good at comedy yet. And like I would tell myself, you know, honestly, is I would just tell myself to just keep being patient and work hard. I would probably do things almost the same way that I did them, but I wouldn't get involved in as much comedy like beef that I did early on. And I think I did like some good stuff. I'm glad that I spoke up about some things. But looking back, instead of saying publicly, like, I mean, I said publicly, and I'm not going to mention a place name, but I was like, I'm not working at such and such anymore. I'm not working at this club anymore because this dude's a piece of shit. And looking back in time, what I would have done is I would have just stopped working there quietly until they made the changes, you know. And there's a few reasons for that, and one of them is career-wise. The other one is because I wound up centering myself in that debate. And instead of them actually talking about what happened at the club with the owner of that club, they wound up being like, oh, Sam, you know. And then what happened is people kind of came after me, and instead of me talking about like, or centering the people that were affected by the abuse, it wound up just being me like defending myself, because I was like, you know, because no matter what, like I'm watching like stuff play out right now, and like, I'm not going to name specific, but I see this stuff in comedy happening, and people are upset at this club and that club. And honestly, I think it's dope that people are like, hey, like, I'm not working there anymore. That's good. If that's good, it's good to take a stand and be like, no, like,
but
because
it doesn't all have to be public.
Yeah. Well, personally, the thing is with me is that, I can only, I'm already not working at some major establishments because of some stuff from back in the day. And maybe I'm in a place someday to say more stuff publicly, but I don't talk about politics on the internet. I talk about politics when I'm on stage, though. I talk about how we should treat our unhoused neighbors on stage. And I don't know. Maybe someday I'll talk more publicly about that stuff, but right now it's not where it's at, because I support my family with the money I make from comedy. I feel guilty about it all the time too. I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing or not. But yeah, if I could go back in time, man, I'd tell myself to chill out, to just be patient, you know. Don't be so loud. Be loud on stage, be quiet off stage, you know.
I don't, this isn't a question that's necessarily related to what you were just talking about, but I remember when I featured for you at one of those early shows, one of your early big runs down in Eureka, you were down there. It was before the pandemic, and you did mention something about how you weren't quite sure if the road and comedy was for you. You're like, I don't know if this is for me. Do you know if something switched or clicked, or an event happened that made you really want to go for it?
Well, there was a point. The way it worked for me is that there was a point where I could look at what I was making at my job versus what I was losing by working my job. And eventually those numbers matched up. And I was like, okay, if I took these 2 extra shows every week that I can't because I'm working full time, then I would be making as much as I was at my job. And then I'd be more, you know, what's weird is I actually started doing comedy full time so I could be home more, you know? And
that's awesome.
The first year, the first year, and then all these like local shows, you know, that I'm like in their thing. And honestly, the shirts, man, like selling shirts, you know. By the way, I want to clarify something I said too about like how, for me, like being quieter off stage, like I do think it's dope, and I am proud of myself and what other people did, where we did stand up to a comedy club back in the day. I'm glad that I did that. It was the right thing to do. and I might not have as much flexibility as I used to have with stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But people that are like, oh yeah, I'm not working at this place, like that's awesome, because these clubs, whether they realize it or not, I think there's a lot of great people working at these comedy clubs. But a lot of these comedy clubs, especially ones with multiple locations, like they're corporations, and and it's a business, and business is cruel.
It's brutal.
And it's not just like something that, like, if enough people are like, oh, I'm not working there, like it does affect them, and also it'll affect you because you might feel better about yourself because you're not jumping through those hoops and stuff, you know.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, it makes you be able to sleep easier, you know.
By the way, if you're part of one of those large comedy corporations and you're watching this, please hire me. I'll do anything for you. I will. Yeah. I'll do whatever
Sam
you
will
want.
do it all.
I'll do whatever you want.
Need. This guy, I mean, you were living under tarps.
Yeah. And if you're from Live Nation, I've heard nothing but good things. Ticketmaster, reach out.
Yeah, please let Sam know.
Yeah, the Helium conglomerate, the God, man, that's crazy.
Chucklebone, Funny Zone.
Yeah. Chuckle Hut, Come and Laugh, CUM. That's the name of my comedy club that I'm opening.
I like Laugh and Come.
Laugh and Come. That's even better. Yeah.
That would be a fun club to design.
Yeah. Come on, guys. See you.
Come on, guys.
Yeah.
There's no comma in there.
You know what would be the best comedy club name is, what if the comedy club is called Anyway, What Else Is Going On? My label was worried because one of the clips that did really well on Bob and Tom was me telling that story about Here's Good.
Yeah.
And that people used to call me Here's Good because I would get drunk and I'd pass out in like bathrooms, and people would be like, dude, go sleep on the couch. And I'd be like, here's good. You know,
but I am glad that you joined for a while, Sam.
Yeah.
It's
this
always
was fun, Rudy.
My 10th and final guest of this episode is Curt Neill. Curt is a fellow Oregonian. We actually played high school football against each other at one point or another. And he is a filmmaker. He's made a movie called Derek's Dead that I watched with my mom, and we both enjoyed it. I recommend it. It's on Prime Video, so check it out. Derek's Dead, written and directed and starring Curt Neill. So it's very funny, and I suggest you go check it out. I really he's also in another movie called George of Tujunga, where he is the lead. I haven't watched that yet. It's somewhere online. So watch Curt where you can. But this is a great closer to the conversation. I really like Curt. I really enjoyed our time together, and it was good to connect when he moved back to Oregon around the pandemic. And you hear a bit about his reflections on that experience as far as moving back to Oregon and what it taught him and what he took from it and what he brought with him back to LA when he returned. He returned to LA, and he's working on a lot of stuff still, and he's making a lot of great videos, so check him out on the internets, TikTok, Insta, all the jazz. And please enjoy this conversation, which I think is a nice way to finish this compendium episode. So here's me chatting with Curt Neill.
So if you could give your early self any advice, what would it be? Or what do you wish you knew that you didn't know when you got into the game that you're still in today?
Yeah, I think it would pretty much just be, it's kind of similar to all the stuff we've been talking about, but I think the kind of biggest bit of advice I would try to give myself is just don't worry about what other people are thinking or saying or doing. Don't put as much importance on what everyone else is doing or what they claim is important. Pay attention to yourself, realize who you are, what you want, and most importantly, on top of all of that, or kind of in hand in hand with all that, is just be patient with yourself. That if you could just give yourself some time, you're fucking young. You got a lot of developing and growth to do. It's gonna take time. There's no rush. There's no quick fix. You just gotta go through this stuff. So just stay quiet, stay patient, try, listen to yourself, try to be yourself, and don't give as much of a fuck about what other people are doing or saying, or what they may or may not think of you. Because that's what held me back for so long. I was constantly scared of being not cool enough, not funny enough, not good enough. So any effort provided the chance to be not good enough, not funny enough, not cool enough. So it was really hard for me to make any efforts because of that. So it was just I was really holding myself back. I mean, it's not that unique to me. It's a lot of people talk about it. My worst critic was myself, or whatever those kinds of phrases. It's very true. The hardest person on me, the thing that has gotten the most in my way is my own head. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So just focus. Do you find you stay? Don't worry about them. Don't
Focus on Curt.
I wouldn't have heard it. I wouldn't have listened to it or took the advice if 40-year-old Curt went back to 22-year-old Curt and said all that stuff. 22-year-old Curt would go, "You crazy man."
Yeah,
I would not listen. I would not, even if I did, I wouldn't know how to implement it. I was pretty lost, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's not uncommon either.
Yeah.
It's really not for the youth to just do their thing and think they know it all, because they know a little more than they used to, and that's super empowering. That feels exciting. Was there something, an event or anything, or any practice or actions that you took, intentionally or not, that helped you get to this point? More on that idea of I got to focus on myself more and be patient and kinder to myself.
I mean, I do look back and I do give myself credit for still trying one way or the other, even when there was large gaps between significant efforts. I did keep trying. So I am able to retrospectively give myself credit for doing that, knowing how much I was in my head and doubting myself and judging myself and terrified of what other people thought of me. The fact that I still did generally keep trying I'm proud of myself for that. But the more specific and direct and big choice, more specific to your question, was leaving LA and going back to Oregon. Truly, because by then, I mean, I should say too, I'm surprised I haven't brought it up throughout this comedy health podcast. I'm a big therapy guy. I've been going to therapy for years. It's been very helpful for me. I think anyone in the world can benefit from it, no matter how good you think you're doing. I think it's good for anybody. But by the time I was getting ready to get the heck out of here, I was very aware of how much other people's potential opinions of me affected my mood, my mentality, my effort, my confidence, etc. So whether or not I really knew it was this specifically, that I was doing it specifically because of this, when I did it, completely separating myself from all of these external forces was huge for me. And then simultaneously reconnecting with roots, reconnecting with family, reconnecting with Oregon. Honestly, too, it sounds terrible. It's kind of too negative, but a big thing I got out of that time back in Oregon, I did finally know for sure that I didn't have a secondary backup future in Oregon. Because those entire first 13 years in LA, it was like, well, if it doesn't go well, I can always go back to Oregon. Yeah, I got friends there. I like Eugene enough, or maybe Portland or whatever. Oh, there's options. I could always go back to Oregon. But spending those 2 years there, I was like, no, I don't want to be here.
Not for me.
I don't want to be here. Yeah. I got people and things to do back in LA. I got to go back. So that, knowing that it wasn't going to be enough, Oregon wasn't going to be enough, was huge.
Yeah.
But also, like I said, completely separating myself from all of these thousands of external forces. Taking the shape of all these people I know in comedy that I think are cool and funny, it completely separating from all of them, so I can quiet what's going on up here and just focus on what I think and what I want.
Yeah,
did wonders.
I bet. And I'm guessing the voices are so much louder in LA, those external forces.
Yes, because there's a lot of people here I want to respect and like me and be my peers.
Yeah, for sure.
So what if I tried to do something and it wasn't funny and they didn't like it?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Right.
No. Yeah. I think the thing that a lot of people say and realize is that not nearly as many people are paying attention to you as you think.
Nobody is. Nobody's thinking about me for a fucking second.
And it doesn't. Yeah. And so that's why you just have to kind of keep the nose down and keep doing your thing. just don't stop, man. If you love the thing you're doing, then good. You're doing a service for yourself and for others.
Yeah. And
I love that.
the more consistently, the more frequently you try, the better you get.
Heck yeah, man.
Practice,
I love
practice,
that.
practice.
It doesn't make perfect, but fuck
You
perfect.
get as close as you can.
You get, you want to make something you're proud of, and that comes with a lot of time and patience and effort, intentionality. So that's super cool. Well, I'm glad that you're back back down in LA, because I remember you were like you were talking about it. You're like, I got to get back. It felt like that episode, season 3 of Lost or whatever. It's like, we got to go back to the island.
Yeah. I'm a real jack.
Yeah, you are a jack. Just trying to save everybody on
Right.
that island.
Yeah, even though I'm not properly qualified and I'm maybe an alcoholic.
Yeah. Are you drinking these days?
Yeah, but much less than I used to, which is great. Another thing that came out of Oregon was I became a weed guy. I get high all the time now.
Oh, there you
and
go.
It's been lovely. It's really been nice for me for the same reasons. It quiets my mind and quiets all those external voices.
Yeah.
And it's funny. It does help me a lot creatively, but not in the corny ways people make fun of. It's not like, oh, I'm high, I'm having all these crazy ideas. What about time travel? But it's not travel, whatever. It does help me creatively in the sense that it quiets all the bullshit, and I can hone in and focus on one thing in front of me for like an hour, and then all of a sudden I wake up like I was blacked out, but I was like, whoa, I just edited that whole thing. I forgot what time it is. I wasn't thinking about anything. And then it just makes everything else more fun. I just have more fun watching bullshit, and sleeping is nicer. I don't know. It's really improved my life. And then it's been easy to drink less because of that. Because it's like, because I just do edibles, and like those, if you're going to a spot, like I got a spot near me that has all these deals, they're very cheap, man. And the high I can get from one edible is the equivalent of like one good drunk
night
in terms of the feeling.
Yeah.
No hangover.
Right.
Like an eighth of the cost, maybe financially. Like it's so much cheaper. It's so much healthier. It's really nice. Better. It's so much less dangerous to your body and to the public.
Well, the advice from Curt is keep going and do some edibles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right on, Curt. Well, I really appreciate chatting with you today.
Yeah.
I'm
Thanks for having me on, man. It was real fun.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah. Yeah, you too, dude. And find Curt online. Curt Neill, 2 L's at the end.
Curt with a C, Neill, Neill. It's like O'Neill without the O.
2 first names. That's
I know. What does that mean? You can't trust me?
Yeah, that was in Teen Wolf or something. I think they said never trust a man with 2 first names, but I trust you, Curt. I don't know why.
It's not bad advice, I'll say that much.
Right on. Well, thanks again, Curt. I appreciate you and the work that you're doing, and I'll watch your movie and I'll let you know what I think about it.
Please, that'd be great. No pressure regardless.
Right on. All right. Have a good one, my man.
You too, Bo. Later.
And that was Curt Neill. And you just listened to parts of 10 conversations with 10 awesome folks I had on Jokes in the Gym this season, the first 10 episodes. I think I might actually adjust it. To do 5 guests per episode and still do everyone. It'll just take longer to get through it. So that would mean 9 more weeks of this, 8 more weeks of this, which I'm not opposed to, because like I said, moving forward, I'm going to take a step back as far as number of interviews that I'm scheduling, because it takes a lot out of me. I want these interviews to be good, and something I'm noticing with the first 10 episodes is that I had a bit more vibrancy, a little bit more vitality in some of these conversations, and I think that's because it was newer to me and because I had longer between episodes, like as far as recording them, so I had more to give. And so I think that'll be part of what I do. I've already had some folks reach out to me about being on season 2, which I'm really excited about. There's so many awesome people I want to continue to have conversations with, but I just don't want it to be such a breakneck speed, because that was getting to me, especially towards the end of the year. And I definitely am excited to share some of my learnings and some of the common threads, common themes that we get into in these conversations. I think if you look at these 10 together, you'll see a lot of commonalities, which is be kinder to yourself. Don't worry about being cool. and do things because you love them. And so I think that's the thing that you or me or anyone can take away is try to think less and do more. And by doing that, you'll be kinder to yourself because you're taking action. And I think when we take action, that's when we feel good. When we're doing something, when we're a part of something, when we're contributing to something, when we're doing things that bring us joy. And so how can we keep those things in our lives that bring us joy? And how can we keep doing them in a way that brings us joy? I think those are really important questions that we need to ask ourselves. And over the course of these next few weeks, 8 weeks, as we get through these compilation episodes, I'll try to come up with some more, distinct learnings on each episode. So I think that by doing 5 per episode, it'll help us find a bit more to take from them. Because with 10 episodes, with 10 clips from 10 different guests, that's a lot of stuff to learn. It's hard for us to keep all that in our heads. And it's not like I am trying to keep all of this stuff in my head, but I do want to keep some of this stuff in mind, like have it at least accessible. So when I am faced with similar situations, I'm able to utilize some of the learning, hopefully, that I've gotten from my friends, from people on the podcast. And so, yeah, I think that's some of the stuff I'll do to take it easier on myself and to enjoy the process, to take some of the advice, to not worry about being so good, but also put my best foot forward. So if you're still here, if you're listening to the pod, I thank you so freaking much. And I would just love it if you wanted to reach out and chat. If you had any questions or suggestions or comments, feel free to email jokesandthegym@gmail.com or find us on Instagram, jokesandthegym, or Rudy Tibersi. We're happy to hear from you. I say we, it's the royal, it's me. I don't have an alter ego. It's just Rudolph. It's me. It's your boy. And so, thank you for hanging out. I'm glad we're hanging out, and I'm glad I get to have these conversations. It's been a lot of fun already to look back at them, and I'm looking forward to looking back at them some more over the course of these winter months, January and December. So, hope you're doing well. Hope your holiday season's going swimmingly. I'm excited about the things I'm getting to do in the weeks coming up. Going to some nice places in the nature, having some friends around town, seeing family, eating food, relaxing, doing some comedy. I'm doing some comedy this Wednesday, December 18th at the Olson Run Comedy Club, featuring for Andy Woodhull. It's a clean show. I'm looking forward to it. A little nervous, but I think it'll be fun. I'm excited. And I hope that you have something to look forward to as well. I hope you're chugging along. I hope you're not listening to the haters. I hope you're trying to block that stuff out as best you can and just keep moving forward. Pay attention to what you can control. What can you control? I think when I do that, I feel a lot better. When I get in my head or frustrated or upset or whatever, it's like, what can I control? And how can I prepare better so next time I'm not left feeling funky or crispy or whatever the case may be. Crispy, crispy, crispy. Sometimes you want to be crispy. That's cool too. I hope you're having a great day. I thank you for being who you are. And I look forward to the next time we get to hang out. I'll see you later. Happy holidays. Ciao.
Jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. Not jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. With Rudy Tibersi.
Jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. Not jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym.